I got a phone call, had to cut it short, so I'm gonna give it another shot. Been thinking about how my European audiences cannot enjoy my show because it's always too late. So I'm trying to squeeze one in the afternoon. Gonna have to get some tunes on, but while you're waiting, you can kind of have a look at some of this artwork here. Some tasty artwork for you. All right. So I've been on a Tom Waits kick recently, but I'm gonna switch it around to some other stuff in 10 seconds here. I know nobody's here yet, but this is just for the folks coming in. Turn the volume up a touch, don't make it too loud. All right, grab my coffee and looking good. So I'm trying to make myself like black coffee. Anybody like black coffee? Welcome to Donald Kent's live art stream of Militiaman. So somebody asked me recently, what is Militiaman about? So quickly, in the short version, it's a story about America's favorite superhero who discovers that his teammates, MAGA Force, were murdered by the corporate sponsor, essentially Conservative Incorporated, and then the rabbit hole that he goes down transforms him and takes him farther down the political spectrum in his views. But more than that, he discovers that he has some hidden angelic powers and a higher purpose to free the world from satanic parasites. So that's a pretty nice, it's a pretty good culmination of, taking 125 pages and squeezing it into a paragraph, So here we have a kind of a better look at kind of the satanic cult that MAGA Force is fighting, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, man, it's, my last video, I was talking about how, I took the year off. I was grieving and just not in a good place, to say the least. And now I'm coming back. Yes, back in the saddle again. So this scene here is the cult members, the sort of the satanic cult members. This is obviously an analogy for something else that we know about. If you look closely at this guy's baseball hat, that gives you a little idea of, where he's at. You can see the little symbol on his mask. It's the same symbol that is on the demon's head in that image. And the whole COVID thing. Let's check the chat, see who wants to say hello. You guys introduce yourself, say hi. Let me know who's here. And I might turn the music down a hair. It just feels slightly too dramatic. Yeah, I'm sorry. Give me 10 seconds here. So we're taking up where I left off last night on this page. Also, quick thing. I had the idea that with the first issue of this series, I think what I'm going to do is create a page at my new website and just post it there for free and have people, go and hopefully give me reviews, like listen to, or rather listen to, go read it. And it won't be colored though. That's a very expensive process. And I need to do a crowdfunder for that. So, but the idea of putting this out there for free and then having people read it, uh, critique it, respond to it. Hopefully, that is going to give it some traction. Being a one-man show here, I can't. How do I say? I can't kind of do the normal crowdfunder type campaigns, mainly because it's the way the time works out. I got to figure something out though. Let's see who wants to say hello. We've got CP Webster is here. Hey, Mr. Kent. Just sitting here at my desk. See, there you go. I had you in mind, actually, because I thought, like you've been missing my shows. And you're writing some sword and sorcery. Glad to catch you live at last. So, Mr. Webster, is that, I get that right? Do you write for the Bizarchives? Are you in the Bizarchives world? I'm just kind of trying to see what's our connection. I suppose most people who know me know that I illustrated some of the Bizarchives stuff. They're one of the books, some covers, and bizarchives.com, thebizarchives.com is where people can go to purchase that and other fine works of literature. Sword and sorcery. So what's your, I guess like everybody into that is to some extent a fan of like Robert E. Howard, Conan, and I did a pretty cool video on Hyperborean. The Hyperborean Spirit is what it's called. So if you want to look back at my other videos, you can find that. I've interviewed Dave Martell for my series on Imperium Art. Oh, damn, I can't find the right pen. Okay, here it is. I just am a massive Dave Martell fan, basically. I just love his energy. I love his spirit. I like the way he thinks. There you go. And I'm really all about these people that are taking control of our culture, our identity, our narrative, producing content that our culture can enjoy and imbibe. This thing about art, in a sense, is it's kind of like there's something immortal about it. You publish a book and then it's always there. You make a painting, it's always there. And we don't always see the effects of what we're doing or having. You might think like, what would Robert E. Howard think if he knew how famous he is now, what gigantic legacy he left. It's quite awesome. So yeah, leave a legacy, whatever that might be. Obviously, not everybody's an artist or whatever, but your legacy could be your children. It could be a business. There's a lot there. but I think it's something that anyone in the white positive movement should be thinking of and be aware of. We are, we have a very, very heavy responsibility. And to be in the know, to know what we know, and not do anything about it, I'd say is a massive crime. It's a crime against your people. You know, it's a crime against your race, if you will. And that's not acceptable. So do something, you know. And some people are very laid back, and they're like, well, you know, this or that's not my style. I'm more of a chill person, so I'm gonna do this thing over here or that thing over there. But at the very least, I think supporting the community, supporting the arts, you know, these things are essential. Going on meme campaigns, you know, those are good things to do. Yeah. I'll check the chat here, see if there was a response. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Kent. Yes, indeed. Oh, I dropped my pen. Shoot. Just had my novella, The Horror Beneath, published by them. It was indeed the Bizarchives where I first came across your work. There you go, bingo. Yeah, I think you mentioned that to me somewhere in the comments, somewhere on one of my videos, maybe. Yeah, it's quite brilliant. I'm assuming you're maybe in England, the motherland, as I like to call it. What I think is really cool is how many, frankly, English people are in the Bizarchives, you know, that are producing work or are part of that culture. You know, I think that's quite cool. I'm not sure kind of how that happened, since whatever Dave is. Probably just it's the internet, you know. I mean, we have an internet culture. It's not really bound, right, by, you know, wherever it is you live. Speaking of English music, this is I feel this album is and this band is very English, and I'm a total Anglophile, big time. So that's nice. A lot of this particular album is really has a lot of like classical music sort of aspects to it, as you can tell. It's interesting. I feel like a lot of, I don't know, maybe one could maybe say that a lot of the British artists of this kind of British invasion, and like especially in like prog rock, they have a stronger background in classical music, whereas say maybe Americans are a little more steeped in things like the blues, you know. Then you got bands like Led Zeppelin that come along and totally reinvent the blues, you know, in a way, way cooler way, in my opinion. So in this scene here, the lead character is talking about these evil cult members that are rioting and killing, looting, you know, what a sort of a scourge they are on the land. And so adding a few dramatic shadows to his face helps to create more drama in the image. Shadows are like a kind of, in film and in comics and visual art, there's something about shadows that they are like a subtext to a scene. You know, they set a tone. Color does too. Color is a very, very massive part of that. I just find these things interesting. So, yeah. And there you go. For me, this album, like when I first heard this album, it was around Christmas time. So I just like associate it with like the Christmas spirit a lot. The themes in here, it's pretty interesting. It's sort of morning, noon, yeah, midday, afternoon, evening, night. And that's kind of the theme of the album. Oh, we got a comment here. Oh, sorry, the phone's shaking so much. Incredible work, mates, and amazing to see it coming to life on the page. Looking forward to owning a copy when you are done. I'm an old art school grad myself, but took early retirement to write. Wow. I would love to take an early retirement to write, you know. I've been squeezing this in on the side, you know, forever. I don't want to age dox myself or whatever, but been freelancing for at least 20 years. And that's great, man. So I would be very interested to know what sort of art school's like in the UK or in England, wherever you are. Yeah, the only thing I feel kind of bad about is just knowing how long this is going to take to finish. That's why I want to do these videos. That's why I want to parse it out, like meaning you know, publish it at my website for free for a bit, and use that as a way to get people to you know, help me crowdfund the coloring and etc. But yeah, I'm gonna be around. You know, I've got a lot more to share. I'm kind of compelled to do more shows on this channel too, like different kind of shows, not just this. Shows that are shows, you know, that have guests and topics and are fun and exciting and informative events of some kind, you know. The Imperium Art show was really, really cool. Got a lot of kind of, I don't know if I should say e-celebrities, you know, like Richard Spencer was the biggest e-celebrity, if you want to call him that I had on. My subscribers jumped enormously after that. But yeah, one of the shows I want to do is just maybe I would call it Meme Stash. And the original idea was just for me to have some guests on and go over the folders and folders of memes that I have stored on my computer. And, you know, looking back, say from like, say 2016 to today, and how, you know, it's sort of like a stroll down memory lane. It's like the history of memes, you know, or the history of our movement. And, you know, do you remember when this was a thing? Do you remember when this came out? Do you remember this event, et cetera, et cetera? But it's also kind of a gauge or measurement of my political journey, sort of my journey of racial awakening, political awakening. I can remember at some point early on when I was. So I'll just kind of start off by saying, like, you know, during the 20, what was it, 2016 election, uh, it came down to Hillary or Trump. And I'm an artist musician, so like everybody I know is kind of in that liberal artist musician culture, right? And I'm on Facebook, not like super pro Trump as much as anti Hillary and anti everything and anything. And a lot of it was based on like WikiLeaks, uh, just stuff that I found out that was like, oh my God, look at this criminal behavior. This person's running for president. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, we can't let this happen. And I was, you know, like profoundly, what's the word? Like betrayed by my friends. This kind of like stabbed in the back, left for dead kind of. A lot of people were like, how the hell? I can't believe that you would vote for Trump. Like, I always thought you were, hippie cosmic Don. Like, you were, you live in Asia and like now you're a racist. Like, how did this, what's, they couldn't wrap their head around it. And the thing is, it doesn't. You'd be like, oh, okay, well, let me explain, and then they shut down. Like, no, they don't want an explanation. No, 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 no. They don't want to think. They don't want data. It's a fucking cult. It's just about just conform. And like, I mean, we all have our stories. We've all been there. It's nothing sort of new, but. Where am I going with this? Oh yeah, so the meme stash concept would go over, memes that, I remember I posted this and I got like a 30-day ban on Facebook, or, this is about the time when my family started coming to me and telling me stop posting political things. Like, you're thinking like, who the fuck are you to tell me what I can post? And why do you feel compelled to do that? You know, like, I don't come into your house and tell you how to arrange your furniture, or I don't tell you what to think. And not only that, every single thing I'm doing is just data driven. Um, and I know this is old kind of stuff, but I also think it'd be funny though too. Like, it'd be fun to look at all these funny memes and have a laugh, have a bit of a trip down memory lane kind of thing. And then share stories about it, like, oh yeah, I remember when Trump did this, or when Biden did that, or this new policy, or COVID, or who knows what, and then just kind of have like a little group chat about it. See, we do have a bunch of people here. Who else is here? Say hi in the chat so I know who's here. Tom John. Wow, look cool. Excellent. Welcome, Tom John. Good to have you here. So Webster is saying, it was interesting listening to your early take on the New York art scene. I'm glad you enjoyed that. I spent a couple of weeks in New York some years ago hauling my portfolio around to, no availability, right? Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's like it's kind of a club that we're not in or something. I don't really know. I kind of know, how it works, but like, I was never willing to change. I'm like, the nature of art is not to be like, okay, I'm gonna make what everybody else is making, and I'm going to, toe the party line. So it was very. I guess the thing that I learned about living in New York City is that New Yorkers are one of the most provincial people in the world. Like they have this. I don't want to make these grotesque, what do you call them, like generalizations. It's not really true or fair, and it changes over time because, like, when I lived in New York compared to today is quite different. New York was way, way, way better. There's people that are born and raised there, but there's more people that moved there. And I would say that the people that moved there changed the kind of cultural demographics, if that makes sense. Yeah. But it's this kind of like we're the center of the world type thing. And there's no reason to go anywhere because we have it all. And in a sense, that's true. I would say that, was one of the benefits of living there was kind of like the world comes to you in New York City, just in terms of like, food and entertainment, culture, these kinds of things. But yeah, I mean, by the time I left New York City, I had really had enough of it. Kind of like I was like, I'm done. I'm burned out. I want to get out of here. And I obviously have friends in New York that are, great people that I admire, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about them either. So, yeah. But the art world in general, see, like I was also in San Francisco, and you know, had artist friends there, and kind of tried to get the sense of, well, how do you make it in San Fran? What's the score out here? Those particular friends were more. I don't know if you've ever seen like Juxtapose magazine. That it's this kind of like a modern pop culture. That kind of art. It's not the sort of conceptual postmodern weirdo art of New York City. It's more like cartoons and tattoos and skateboards and that kind of, it's like sexy but also creepy at the same time. I don't know. If you pick up a copy of Juxtapose magazine, you'll see what I'm talking about. And it's as if these magazines determine what sells and what styles go, out there. And you just get this weird feeling like everybody's trying to fit into that. Everybody's trying to be, make art that will go in that magazine or magazines of that type. High Fructose is another. And I don't entirely hate these magazines. There's actually some pretty good stuff in them. I will occasionally pick one up. I would say that the people doing that kind of art, I think, are maybe a little more fun. Whereas the postmodern, weirdo, anti-white, anti-Western, anti-Christian stuff is it's definitely more toxic. It's more hateful. And so, I don't know how to say it, but like it's the art world in general is essentially the domain of gays and feminists. And that's it. So like, if you don't somehow fit into that mold, then you're never, ever, ever going to make it, That doesn't mean you may not have access to collectors, though. There's a guy, Aaron Art, who I interviewed and I'm friends with on Telegram. Highly recommend his work. He's one of us, but he somehow managed to infiltrate the art world and sells his paintings and has some success. So there's always a catch, or not a catch. There's always an exception. Um, Good on him. But yeah, I don't know. So like ran its course. I ended up moving to Asia, and I had more success in the kind of art market in Asia than I did in New York City. Granted, I had studied painting in Japan, and my painting at the time was highly evolved, and I'm using the tradition of Asian art, that's created in China. And I'm selling it to Taiwanese people, so they're blown away. Like, how is it that this American guy totally mastered our art form, our traditional art? And like they loved it. They were super super happy about that, and which was lovely, because I felt like I'm important to somebody. I'm making an impact. I'm having an impact. So that was good. Um, but again, it's not like people change, and I changed, and it's not something I really need to do anymore. I don't really have anything handy that I could put on camera. I'd have to like go grab some artwork. I'd love to show you that though, but I just don't. If you go to my website, kent-art.weebly.com, there's a fine art section, and in there you can see some of those kind of Oriental style paintings. Some of them are conceptual. They kind of like mix surrealism and symbolism in with these techniques and themes. I think you'll find it interesting. Yeah. Funny thing about illustrating comics is that I know that there's going to be word balloons here, so they're going to cover up that area. But in a sense, you have to kind of draw it anyway. Like, there's a certain integrity to the art. I figure at some point I'm also going to sell these pages, or maybe somebody would like to collect them or something. I don't know. So it's just nice to have them looking a bit more finished, you know. Now, in a lot of European comics, they'll draw the word balloon into the art, and then someone will either hand do the calligraphy, or do it digitally. I've often thought, like, that makes sense. Like, you should try to figure that out. And it's just sort of another added aspect to the process. I don't know. Maybe someday I'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. And topics like, well, how do you draw billowing smoke? And you look at photos, and comics are like an abbreviation. A lot of illustration, cartooning, it's an abbreviation of reality. It's not meant really to be photorealistic. It can be. I've seen some amazing photorealistic comics that just like blow your mind. New York Comic Con years ago, like that. His drawings. You would have to take photographs and then just copy the photographs. So imagine setting up a scene in like a abandoned warehouse, where some guys are fighting, and you have like you might have like toy guns that are in the scenes or whatever. You photograph the whole thing, and then he takes it back to the studio, and it essentially copies it. And visually, it was off the charts, amazing and beautiful. But the guy ended up like quitting comics. Like he just got out of it. He was like, this is too much work and I'm not getting paid and blah, blah, blah. It's a very, very hard market to get into. Very hard. I can remember one time I was at a different Big Apple Con or one of the New York Comic Cons. And I'm there just like every other artist, sort of shopping around my portfolio, and you're in line with a lot of these guys, so you get to see their work, and it gives you a sense of like, oh, okay, well this is interesting, and then also you get to kind of hear what editors and professionals think of those styles. So that gives you a little sense of like, oh wow, okay, this is what they're looking for, because in a sense, I mean, it's illustration, it's not fine art, it's not this kind of, this comes from my heart and soul and I'm blah 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 blah. They want to see how good you can draw Spider-Man, or Batman or whatever the classics are. They want to. It's a corporation, and I think a lot of artists have maybe a little trouble with that because so much of their time and ego is invested into the styles that they develop, etc. Anyway, this one guy, his style, I thought it was like hideous to look at. I hated it. It was overly, he basically turned everything into this kind of weird robotic kind of anatomy, and he had like all this excess rendering, little dots and dashes and things in there to kind of give it style, if you want to call it that. And it was, for me, ugly, but from like a kind of a comics professional perspective, you could see how they would maybe look at that and go like, oh, this would go good on X book, whatever, the new book that's coming out, Doom Patrol, or, like reach out to this guy and give you an email or phone number or something. And I can remember, I mean, back then I was pretty naive about like the process and the Comic-Con culture. And I just kind of chimed in a little bit while he was trying to pitch his work. Man, if looks could kill this guy, it gave me a look like, what the hell are you, like, don't talk while I'm in a sense in a job interview, So, I mean, I'm actually slightly embarrassed. I was wrong to do that, but I didn't really know it, But it's just all part of that whole Comic-Con culture and experience. A little story there for you. I think artists certainly have a lot of status in those kind of environments. And then, of course, there's the lovely, lovely ladies of cosplay. Wow, that'll sometimes that melts your face, So it's funny because like same deal here. Like this is a full bleed. Like the border of the page is actually around like here, like a half inch in, and that's where the page gets cut, by the printer. But in order to have the full bleed, again, I just kind of go off the page, and like here you can see I don't really need to kind of finish that out because it's just going to get cut off. Let's see if there's any comments here. Let's see who's joining us today. We got Crusader 21. Wouldn't be a party without you, buddy. Tom John, have you thought of contacting Antelope Hill Publishing? This is a freaking excellent question. And I actually met them. I performed at the... Oh, frick, I'll get to you in a second. Good to see you, buddy. But I met them at the first White Art Collective Music Festival. I performed there with a band doing my original music. And, I have a bunch of their books. Yes, obviously that's like a smart or a good thing to do. I've been publishing, or I have published with White People's Press. Um, I suppose that's probably the first thing I should go with, just because I'm already kind of established there. But I actually, believe it or not, have my own publisher. He's located out of the country, and so like if I were to, there just would be certain securities there that would help. Um, People want to shut you down, so like that's the thing about us, is that we always have to consider these kind of dangers and stuff. Now, Antelope Hill's not going anywhere. I would say they're secure. I do have. I'm probably going to have a monthly comic with Kai Moros and I, or at least me, in the new Media to Rise magazine. Media to Rise is the media company that covers Patriot Front and these kind of nationalist groups, like there's many in Europe. You've got Identity Europa and da da da. So they are coming out with a new magazine that's kind of like the Rolling Stone for our guys, and it's going to be freaking killer. It's a lot of sort of MMA culture type stuff. You can get the general gist of that. And so they will be publishing a short comic I did with Kai Moros in there. I did an interview with Rob Rundo, who runs the magazine. You guys should check that out. I would highly recommend it. And will I go with them? So I have to say, like, it would be great to go with like a real comics publisher. Like I love Dark Horse. That's to me, that'd be awesome if I could get published by Dark Horse. What do you call it? Image Comics is not. It's not like a normal publisher. You kind of, I don't know how to explain this. You're in charge of the whole thing. Like you're, in a sense, it's sort of like a platform, and then you run your comics business from that platform. Um, and there's a Boom Studios. Is it Boom Comics or Boom Studios? They're great. They've been really successful lately. That could be because if you're selling food, you want your food in supermarkets. You know what I'm saying? So like I love Antelope Hill. They're a huge part of our culture and our politics. But is it the right company to go for to sell a graphic novel? Because this is not meant exclusively for our guys. In fact, it's really ideally targeted towards like just your standard normie patriot Republican conservative. That is the audience that I'm targeting, which is a far larger audience than the dissident right. Now, since I am a member of the dissident right, obviously you know our concepts and our ideas are baked into this. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I'm right now. I'm really kind of more in the state of like, get this thing done. Get it done. Focus on production. So, but I really have to consider that. So that's an excellent question. Now, my really really good IRL friend Ulfric Duranson is here. Howdy. This song is such a good one to decompress to. Love the blue guitar. Nice. Yeah, music's a big thing. Obviously, we just switched over to Yes here. Good to hear. Thanks for sharing, Crusader. Thank you. And the computer stops. Mr. Bruder is here. Hello, welcome. What are your thoughts on monarchy? Asks Crusader 21. So I am English. I mean, not totally. I'm French, English, Scottish, Irish. But I have always had, like I said, I'm an Anglophile. I've always had a deep love of the English. So here's the thing: in the past, couple of years, as I've woken up, I guess, politically, I've come across a lot of what's really going on historically, what's really going on with, essentially the Jews, the deep state, the New World Order, all of those things. And I've come to find out how much the uh, English or British monarchy has had a role in that. So it's a very hurtful thing to know, how they have corroborated or collaborated with the Jews, essentially, or the Jewish elite, the Zionists. I don't want to say all Jews, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say here. So, um, my instinct is very, traditionalist, to kind of support whatever is traditional, to support the monarchy. Um, Knowing, unfortunately, the kind of darkness and corruption and all those other things, it's tough. So I guess where I'm kind of going with all this is that, if there were a king, that were moral and just and right, that would be better. I would support that. Um, I would say that as like a sort of an ideology or a political structure, I'm compelled by the idea of a monarchy, having a monarchy. I think it's an interesting concept. I don't think it would ever fly in America, but it would be nice to have something culturally and spiritually on that level. You know what I'm saying? Like presidents in the United States used to be like somewhere between man and God, up until Clinton, Bill Clinton, when Clinton got exposed for his naughty activities with Monica Lewinsky and all this other kind of stuff kind of came out. Like he defiled the office, and people finally realized, like this is it is what it is. So of course I didn't know anything about the Clinton uh, sort of mafia, if you will, all the criminal activities that they did. I've only come to know that in the last like 6 years, 6, 7 years. So yeah, it's just the whole thing is sad. It's I'm really in a really, really, really tough spot mentally in terms of, you know, how I'm processing the world right now and what I think. I've ever been a kind of a white pill guy, and I don't know. I think my spirit is a bit broken at this point. And I know that I don't want to say that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to project that. But I'm struggling a lot, with the way things are. It's just extremes. One thing gets worse. Am I answering the question? Let's go back here. Let's see. We got a couple more comments, and let's get into it. So, I'd be okay with some form of limited monarchy. Yes, I'd be fine with a semi-constitutional monarchy. That makes more sense. Give me some powers. Give some powers to monarch, limited, and as a Catholic, Christ is king. Well done. So, here I want to share a crazy radical thought with you guys and see what you have to say. So I study, and this is just like a question. It's not you have to believe what I believe. It's not like that kind of a thing. We know well, about Jewish infiltration and demoralization and all these problems with the Jews in invading our our culture, our civilization for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So I don't know. There's I'm struggling with this idea that like, what if the Old Testament were removed from Christianity, and that only and not only that, but maybe the non-canonical books were actually brought back in, and that that like only and strictly the teachings of Jesus constituted Christianity. That's essentially the question right there. So like I'll give an analogy. So think of I have a background in Buddhism. So in Buddhism you just do the teachings of the Buddha. He lived for 80 years. He taught many, many, many methods in that time. And in order to be a monk, a Buddhist teacher, you have to have, and you have to be able to prove a lineage that your teacher's teacher's teacher, all the way back, it goes straight to the Buddha, and there was no break in that lineage. Therefore, the transmission of enlightenment and the methods of enlightenment are authentic. You see how like scientific that is? Do you understand? So in Christianity, that one of the hardest things for me to process is kind of all the history and all the changes. You know, when I found out that there were books taken out of the Bible, I was like, who in the hell would do that, and why would they do that, and what are we missing? And it just brings everything into question. So the same kind of deal. Like if I don't know, some monasteries in Asia had like total power over all of Asian Buddhism as an institution, and said, you know what, we're going to get rid of all these teachings of the Buddha, and we're just going to focus on these things. And we've translated it throughout like 3 or 4 different languages. You see where I'm going? Like it almost looks as if there's an intentional changing or hiding of the true teachings of Christ. And that's the thing that I'm like highly suspicious of and very worried about. Um, it's a deep topic. I know it's a topic that makes people essentially uncomfortable. It creates a lot of division. I'm not trying to do any of those things. It's just a very sincere question. So I guess there's probably a couple of answers or responses. Let me check here. Should probably put some music back on too. The Gospel of Thomas. That's my favorite right there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Uh, there's so much to that I want to respond to. But let me react. Wow, a lot of comments. There's limited. True monarch has obligation to serve. That the elected official does not. If the monarch is useless, the line ends. Elected official is useless and paid off too, so that's another problem. In America, I'd be fine with an executive for life with a referendum every 10 years. Okay, this is a concept. Mr. Bruder is saying legend has it that one of Buddha's disciples settled down in Bhutan, where he developed Vipassana, 10 days in complete silence and 12 hours of meditation. I can comment quite a lot on that. I know a lot about Buddhist history. Crusader says, I think Genesis and Exodus should stay, but as Christians, a bigger focus on the New Testament should be a priority. So, yeah, this is sort of a thing that like we're not Jews. Their history is not our history. And why is it that, you're starting to see where I'm going with that. Like I want to know the history of my people, and my own, it's called mythology now, the history of my people, the religion, the spirituality of my ethnic race is mythology. You see where I'm going? It's demoralizing. It illegitimizes us. Like, oh well, those people were just savages. Kind of the E. Michael Jones take on, like, pre-Christian Europeans. Oh, you guys are just chasing pigs around the woods. Anyway, so Vipassana. So Vipassana is okay. So like in Christianity, you have Catholics, Lutherans, Episcopal. You have like all these different sort of schools or sects. Vipassana is also called Theravada. But anyway, it's the most orthodox Buddhism. It's the one that's closest to what the Buddha taught. So, and it is really most well known and popular in Southeast Asia, namely Thailand. That's kind of, if you go to Thailand, that's the type of Buddhism you're gonna see there. So Bhutan is pretty much, it's right next to Nepal, on the border of Tibet, and it's essentially Tibetan culture, but it's its own kingdom. It's a very small country. And I would say that, with my knowledge of history, it's far more likely that they had the, like, Tibetan style of Buddhism, which is actually a combination of Tibetan, what's the word? Indigenous shamanism. That's called Bon, and I know that's just a word. But anyway, Tibetan Buddhism combined these things. The Tibetan Buddhism and their history is freaking wild. It's really, really fascinating. It's not a topic I can talk, I guess, intelligently on. But anyway, because it's just too big. But let's get back to what's happening in the chat. I think Genesis and Exodus. Yeah, I can really recommend, although it was for by far the toughest thing I ever went through. You're talking about the Vipassana practice? Because it is. It's like extreme, from our perspective, it's extreme asceticism. Yes, yeah. So the like the practice of Vipassana, okay, I mean, these are people that live in the woods. They have essentially nothing. They live in the woods, they meditate all the time. That is, like, you could die doing that. And then they have, not only that, they have many, many regulations on things that they can't do or that they have to give up. And if you don't understand, like, really what Buddhism is, what the goals are, then it's not going to make sense, to know those things. Like, why? But to try to help you understand it, it would be something along the lines of freeing your mind from attachments. And that, well, why would you want to do that? Well, now we're getting into some very, very deep waters, and the whole show is going to turn into Don's Buddhism hour. So yeah, it's should I do that? I don't know. I can't really concentrate on the drawing and talk in depth like that. But what comes out of it, though, is a lot of psychic powers. Actually, when you do finally master your mind, then you unlock your mind, and then all of these things start emerging. And so I had teachers talk to me and say, when these things start happening, you're to ignore them. Don't get lost or caught up in these things. Just allow them to pass, just the way your thoughts come and go. That's kind of interesting. I think I need some music. Let me. Oh, battery's low. You know what that means? That means the show's probably not gonna. We might just like cut out at some point. Let's check the chat real quick. Yes, I started to call it concentration camp. Ha ha, that's funny. And this place really matched the phrase concentration being to concentrate, right? Um, but like the asceticism, the extremism of like total denial of your senses, you know, that takes profound concentration. I'm gonna keep cruising with some tunes here. Time is it? All right. Um, my son's gonna be home from school shortly, and we got some errands to run. So I probably will wrap it up sort of soon. Essentially, like, how do I say, like, your mind is in a way everything. You know what I mean? Like how you process your experience of your life, the things you manifest, and then how do I say this? Your physical experience through your senses informs this whole illusion of life. Again, it's like without like a certain like philosophical background training, I'm really just going to be speaking gibberish to you guys if you don't understand. Like you got to have a kind of a preliminary course, so to speak, to understand this stuff. And it's funny, I always feel guilty talking about that because it's not like related to our cause, or our people per se, right? But at the same time, it's sort of nice to not have to hear, think, or talk about just the degenerate shit that's going on 24/7. Yours is no disgrace. Yours is no disgrace. Interesting, though, I have noticed that Vipassana seems to be popular in England. When I was in Asia, it's one of the cool things about living in Asia is all the Westerners that I met there. It's super wicked cool. I can remember there was a crew that I hung out with. There's a bunch of English teachers from the same company, but that worked in different towns. And we would get together on a weekend, one of these towns, and go drinking, or whatever, check out the scene, have a good time, and be able to like speak in English, with other white people, and it's like if you don't have that, you're gonna lose your mind. And we had a really neat crew. There was, like South African, New Zealand, England, America, Canada, and the like. And so we, we're just sort of like a crew. And I can remember at one point, I can't quite remember exactly what the guy said. The guy from South Africa, he made some kind of comment, and everybody sort of gave like a poo-poo liberal answer to the comment. And he goes, "Oh, you're not very good colonists." And man, that shook me up. Like it just like shook me. It made me think, holy shit, like I'm in the history of my people living in other countries and moving and settling other countries, like I'm a colonist, like I'm not a native Englishman, I'm not a native Irishman, I'm a colonist, my ancestors are colonists in that regard. So and I had a real strong kind of pang of like guilt where like shit, I'm not a good colonist. What should I be doing? What's the right thing to do or something? And interesting that that would come from a South African white guy. They well, they have a pretty strong sense of racial identity, more so than a lot of us. That was an interesting experience. It's funny, I met more Europeans living in Asia than, like, obviously in America. And it had a good, it was like a really cool aspect of my life over there. You know, there was one guy from New Zealand that, wow, man, I mean, this dude was rugged, like freaking rugged. I actually bought a book that he wrote about this, a history of this. He was like the first white man in Taiwan, and it was a Scottish dentist. I know that sounds bizarre, but like this, were I don't know, 1700s, way back. And this guy came, he was living in Taiwan and did the research on this guy's life and wrote a book about it. But he paralleled the story with his kind of like travel diary, and he would live in a tent. He had like a tent that he carried on his back, and he would sort of, I don't know how he got around Taiwan, but like there was a time when he was sleeping on the mountains and there was like a typhoon, and then there was a mudslide, and his tent was in the mudslide going down the mountain. Honestly. And I remember meeting the guy, and I'm like, that's a man right there. That's a freaking white man right there. This dude, just so rugged, and I just admire the hell out of that. And just think about like the racial tone of it. Like the first white man to live in Taiwan in his history. Talk about a freaking movie that would make a kick-ass movie. This guy, the shit that he went through was extraordinary. Of course, a lot of times where his life was in danger. Back then in Taiwan, the native population was much larger, and part of their culture was that if to be a man, you had to go out and get a human head and bring it back to the tribe. And then that was part of your, coming of age ceremony. So these headhunters were very, very feared by the Chinese, and even and any and all of the Portuguese, I believe, were the first to settle in Taiwan, and then I believe that's where the name Formosa comes from, beautiful island in Portuguese. So I mean, there's a lot we can learn from our people through the history of their travels in Asia. I think that's a pretty neat thing. Let's check some chat here. Boy, I'm talking up a storm. What's going on here? See that you guys give me a lot of energy. That's why. Oh no, it's all about taking away the judgments about physical sensations that you encounter, mainly pain. Well said. Again, that topic of like Vipassana Buddhism, what it's all about is super deep. I recommend people look it up. I'd watch the hell out of that movie. Yeah, I would too. I would love to be in that movie. I would like to. I don't think I could play. You'd have to have like a very, very good actor do that particular role. And one thing I can tell you is he was a redhead too. So like, you can imagine, like living in the mountains of Taiwan, and he married an Aboriginal Taiwanese woman, and he was a devout Christian. Part of the whole mission with the dentistry was to use it as a way to gain trust and to help these indigenous people there, and then teach them Christianity. So this is the thing, right? That's not an uncommon idea in history. So I think like that could be an interesting angle or theme. If I had the freaking money, that'd be the stuff that I'd be doing. I'd be. I don't know why, but like I don't know that I'm the biggest fan, but I sort of see Ewan McGregor playing that role. But it really would be better to have somebody who has more gravitas. And Ewan McGregor has a lot of gravitas, like, but I'm talking. Who's the guy? You see him in the memes. He was my avatar on Twitter for a while. He's like from, I don't know if he's from Iceland or Sweden or Denmark. The meme you see a lot with him is the Star Wars meme where he says, it's a simple life, but it's a living. I know some of you know who I'm talking about, but like he's got a heavy seriousness about him that would suit this. But also this guy, the historic figure I'm talking about, the Scottish dentist. I don't know that I would say was fanatical, but you'd have to be a fanatic to like take a ship across the frickin' globe and then live in this wild west Asian culture. I can hear my son just came in, so I'm gonna have to wrap it up and then do what he did. So I hate to say goodbye, my friends, but it's that time again. Sorry, your live stream tanked other day. Yeah, that sucked. I think my comment broke your system. Yes, you have the power of the Matrix. Mads Mikkelsen, thank you. See, Ulrich, you are the man. He has almost the same phenotype as the Austrian painter. Ooh. Oh, he'd be perfect for that role. Yeah. Take care and God bless. All right, I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming, joining, making for interesting conversation, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much. Yeah, peace to you both. God bless.